Well, hey, looks like we've got a show to do. And why not? It is Boxing Day after all. Hello! Oh, you got a double salute to start with. Welcome to the show. My name's Chris. This is the weekly Spinner Rack, and it's Boxing Day. Yes, this is a weekly live show that I do to talk about the comic book news of the week and the various comics that came out in the past week. So this is what that show is all about. We've got a live chat. And yeah, normally I do it on Mondays, but that would have been Christmas Day. So I figured a lot of people would probably be a little busy there. So I'll give some shout outs to folks jumping in here at the beginning. Lovely to see you all. And this is going to be a good one. Yep, Mr. Comics is here. That's me, baby. And as you can see, I've been working out. There we go. Yep, just needed to straighten my abs. And feeling pretty darn good about my image this year. Definitely got a good workout in since last week, so proud of that. Got a new camera here. That was a present. So I'm looking at it right now, and honestly, I feel like that's really crisp and clean, good color, good definition for the overall picture quality. So that's exciting, and it's exciting to see a bunch of you here. Look at all these lovely. Somebody said nice shirt, but I don't know what you're talking about. I'm bare chested, baby. That's all natural. Yeah, I got my paste pot Pete body ready for the MCU. Thanks for joining me. Appreciate it. I just realized I feel a little bad about this. I've got a really good friend, Hooded Cobra Commander 788 is the name of his YouTube channel, and he always does a live stream on Tuesdays at 5. So I realized by backing it up one day from Christmas, I'm overlapping. Hoodie Coco, if you happen to catch this, I apologize. I was not thinking. Did not mean to step on your toes. Hopefully, people can choose one or the other and watch the other show once it's finished streaming, once it's archived. Tell you what, why don't I pull up the news and we'll get right into it, because we're going to do some news and then we'll do some comic reviews right after that. Here we go. Let's see. You know what? Boy, is it me or do I look a little too small? No, I guess that's normal. I guess everything's laid out right. All right, yeah. So there's I didn't do much with the with the thumbnail this week. It's just a photo. Thank you, Lord Light Lukebringer. Let's see. Recently there's been talk about plagiarism on YouTube. Right. H Bomber guy had a huge video talking about plagiarism. What's your thoughts about the issue? Always worth shining a light on it. It's tricky. Here on YouTube, I'll go ahead and just bring myself up for this. That's a fair question. Plagiarism is important. Super important to talk about. I think that watching his nearly 4-hour video made me think I'm going to try to be a little more careful about how I cite things. I think that I think my default has been to cite, where I get my quotes and things like that. But I probably haven't been perfect. I went to college and they really drum it into you, like how to cite things properly. So I've always made an effort, but on YouTube, nobody's like really like a professional, and there's no compliance or legal department or anything like that. So, tricky. You can make mistakes. I've made mistakes on my channel. I think I can think of 2 instances where I uploaded the draft version, not the complete version, and within the day pulled it down and uploaded a corrected one that, like, had an attribution. So I've made mistakes. I've worked very fast to make sure that I correct that and address it. But yeah, plagiarism is super important to not just cite things, but like really also talk about like where you got an idea or a concept. So um, I don't watch a whole lot of other comic book YouTubers unless it's like a topic that we've already covered, or one that I won't cover because I don't want to have my ideas influenced by somebody else. So that's super important. No, I don't feel that the Weekly Planet has ever plagiarized me. I think those guys are really, really funny. So that's cool. Yeah. Huge huge video that made the rounds on YouTube this week. And boy, did some people come out looking really bad in that. Uh, Illuminati was already some YouTube drama from earlier this year. But boy, she did not come out looking good. And what was the other one that he went really into? I'm trying to remember. I forget the name of the YouTuber, but he's like, yeah, just sort of like, an opinion guy. And boy, just making up his own facts and stuff like that. So that wasn't good. Not good. But that was enough preamble. We've got the news of the week. Let's see what we got first. I'm going to talk about several things. James Somerton. Right. Thanks, Owens Reviews. James Somerton. Let me talk a little news, and then we can talk about, like, the holidays and stuff like that, catch up a little. I thought I'd talk about Distillery announcing 3 of their upcoming titles for the spring, which is just around the corner, believe it or not. This one is White Boat, and at least 2 of these, we got tiny little snippets in the Distillery book Devil's Cut, which was just sort of an anthology of teasers. But this is just telling us a little bit more about it. And this one definitely has a great team on it. Scott Snyder and Francesco Francavilla did a great book that I really enjoyed called The Ghoul. And so they're reteaming to do another horror book. And Scott Snyder says this is, like, of everything he's done, the most horror, like the one who's really leaning into the horror element. White Boat is about like sort of a mega yacht, like just beyond imagination, like how big it is. And like people go on there to almost like have their dreams come true. But it has some sort of a weird dark side. What that is, who knows? Obviously, in the image, we almost see some Cthulhu-esque tendrils of some sort of demon, monster, god type thing. That could be cool. All I can say is that they did a really good job on Night of the Ghoul. I thought that was very effective. Good storytelling, creepy, really unique presentation on its idea. Now that I look at this, though, this does seem like almost like a super horrific version of what was the name of that old show from the 70s? Fantasy Island. Which was way more innocent, but still, like, a place where you could go to get your dreams fulfilled, but there was also a dark side to it. Oh, ha, Victor. Yep. Great minds think alike. Yes, sir. Thank you for the super chat. Steve Sorensen, Troopers Assemble. Give this video a like, please. That's so nice of you to say. Yes. If you just have 2 seconds to hit the like button, that really helps. I'll leave it at that. So that's one of the 3 books that they announced. Here's another one. Another guy that's known for writing horror is James Tynion, and an artist who's done some great work this year, Christian Ward, are teaming up. So James Tynion IV, Christian Ward, they're doing this book called Spectrograph. And I think all Distillery books are 48 pages. So they're like nice, thick volumes. That's kind of nice. This one's coming out in April. Here's the premise. Hollywood Reporter broke this as an exclusive. Hollywood Reporter for a comic book. I thought that was interesting. But anyway, the logline read, "For years, the mansion has sat strangely, nestled into the coastline just a short drive north of Los Angeles. Rumors have haunted the place for years. Its owner, a titan of American industry, with a strange fascination in the occult and the paranormal. For decades, the richest men and women in the country have whispered to each other, trying to understand what he was building alone in that mansion for all those years. And now, finally, with his death and his estate open for sale, they are eager to find out themselves. So, some sort of a ghost story combined with probably some satire, maybe on capitalism, something like that. If you haven't seen it this year, Christian Ward is writing and illustrating. Uh, it's called Batman: The Madness. I want to say it's it's about Batman. It's got the madness in the title. I think it's just called The Madness, and it's pretty darn good. Yeah, Tynan is definitely working overtime. Just lots and lots of books coming out by him. I think he just knows, this is his moment, and he's taking every opportunity he can. I hope he's balancing that enough with like a normal life so that he doesn't burn himself out, because I do enjoy a lot of his books. I think a lot of people do. So we'll see, though. We'll see. City of Madness. Thank you for the correction. Owen's Reviews. Yeah, not Batman the Madness, Batman City of Madness. So if you've picked that up, that definitely gives you an idea of what Ward could do with horror. And yes, I totally got those same vibes, Kevin Street. There's a real life mansion out there that just had, and some of you probably have heard about this. It's pretty famous, but the widow of one of the guys whose last name is Winchester, like the gun manufacturer, she felt like she was being haunted. And what she did is to confuse the ghosts. She was told, I think, by a psychic to do this. She just kept building onto her mansion. Just it was constantly having new rooms built, new doors, and new pathways, hidden pathways. And that was done to like sort of confuse the ghosts and have them get lost. So I don't know if they've ever made a movie or anything about that. They probably have. But yeah, the Winchester Mansion is a fascinating story, and I would be stunned if that wasn't a piece of the inspiration for Tynan. I loved Blue Book, but I did like Nice House on the Lake. I didn't love the final issue necessarily. I didn't hate it, but it wasn't quite the conclusion that like satisfied me. But I didn't hate it. I did overall like Nice House on the Lake. There's a good chance that they were. Yeah, there's a good chance. All right, last of the three that Distillery announced, uh, potentially the one that I'm most interested in is a reuniting of the team from 100 Bullets. Yeah, Brian Azzarello as writer, Eduardo Risso as artist, always in for anything Risso does. They're doing this book called The Blood Brothers' Mother, and it will also have their editor from 100 Bullets, Will Dennis. So that was an interesting additional wrinkle there. Here's the premise: three brothers. Their father is paroled, and he kills their stepfather and kidnaps their mother. They set out on a quest to rescue her. So, gives me vibes of something like The Searchers, if you ever saw that John Wayne classic Western. Could be good. Could be good. Azzarello and Risso did some great stuff with, modern urban crime and conspiracy stuff with 100 Bullets. I'd love to see what they do with a Western. Could be cool. Out of Void, it says there is a movie made a couple years ago. I've been to the Winchester Mystery House at least 10 times. No kidding. That's awesome. Stars Helen Mirren, and it's not very good. Okay, well, sometimes real life is interesting, and coming up with the fictional version of it just can't quite compare. I'm not surprised. I love a good Western. Could be good. I feel like this is promising. So yeah, love 100 Bullets. Can't wait for this. Azzarello back on Westerns. Good. So let's see. I'll move on to other news, but tell you what, let's take a small break, and I'll just say, how was everybody's holiday? I know not everybody celebrates Christmas, but probably a lot of us do. I certainly did. I will say I had a fairly chill, relaxing, but very nice Christmas. We cooked prime rib and popovers. roasted carrots, and twice baked potatoes. Very rich meal, very good. Everything came out very well, I thought. Um, Huge thanks to my wife and my mother in law for doing 90% of it. I made the popovers, tried to help a little with the cleaning, but it was chill. Got a couple comics, including one that I'll talk about today, which was actually a Christmas themed book that Eric Powell dreamed up. Got some friends involved. Uh, yeah, and this camera that we're using. My sister also got me a new light kit for my show. I'll need a special tripod to take advantage of it, but I thought that was very thoughtful. Let's see. Chill as well. Festivus for the rest of us. Least amount of yelling in years. Hey, I'll take it. My Christmas was very nice. I got the Spider-Man by Chip Zdarsky omnibus. That's great. That's good. It was good. Lots of mincemeat tarts. Love mincemeat. Love mincemeat. Oh, gumbo. Yes, please. You guys are talking about stuff I like. Saturnalia Celebration. Good, good, good. It was A-okay. Bought some comics with gift cards. Went to Chinese buffet with brother and friend. And little sister made me a crochet Pokemon, which was made with love. That's great. That's great. Xavier says liked for Christmas. Yeah, 4 gathered for Christmas. It's good. I'm looking forward to talking about that shortly. You broke your pinky. That's not a good Christmas. You're not supposed to do that. Yikes. Yikes. Tried a new way to cook the turkey. Love it. Watching the show in VR, it goes all the way out to here. I don't know what I'm doing. Crochet Pokemon sounds nice. Manciati. Let's see, Chris, what was Christmas food like during your time in Nolans? Well, I would fly home to the East Coast to be with my family on Christmas Day, but yeah, they cook the same kind of stuff that you do just about everywhere in terms of like turkey. Although they might make deep fried turkey a little bit more down in the South. I think that they'll also be willing to cook some things that are a little less common, maybe duck, for instance, maybe even rabbit. That's just sort of a Southern thing. They'll cook a few slightly different meats. Definitely the sides are going to be the biggest difference. There's going to be like mac and cheese with lots of like flavoring. There's going to be okra or collard greens. There's going to be like some different like sides. Anyway. So it was good. It was good, and I'm glad to see people responding fairly positively. Let's see. I'm trying to think. I watched the Doctor Who Christmas special and enjoyed that. I think I like the new Doctor. It'll be interesting to see in the spring where that goes, but I like that episode. And I'm watching. What do you call it? What If? And so far, What If season 2 is very entertaining. Don't know if anybody else has been checking it out, but I really like the ideas. There's a great one where uh, I won't spoil too much, but basically there's a threat to the world in 1988, and so the version of the Avengers that gets assembled in 1988 is different, but it's all like people that we've seen in other movies, and that was satisfying. That was really fun. So anyway. I see a couple people saying that they watched Rebel Moon and that they didn't love it. Yeah. I haven't tried it yet. I will try it. I will try it. Anyway, so that was fun. We'll go back to the news though. Thank you. Spider-Gwen is joining the mainstream Marvel universe. What do I mean by that? Well, Gwen Stacy is Spider-Gwen. And she is not in the main Marvel continuity, which is called the Universe 616. She is in a parallel reality called Earth 65. She's just been in her own stories because, of course, in the main universe, Gwen Stacy famously died. This is a universe where Gwen Stacy got the powers instead of Peter Parker. So yeah, her title is Spider-Gwen, but like in the comics, she's been called Spider-Woman, Ghost Spider. Anyway, she's permanently being moved into Marvel's main continuity. I think this might be a good idea, to be honest, and I'll tell you why. I think the character has proven that it has legs, and you probably have done a lot of what you can do with her on her own, and at a certain point, you wanna be able to sort of, like, throw her in with the other toys that you have in your toy box. Now it all depends on execution, and your mileage may vary from my opinion there. I don't think it's a bad idea, to be honest. I think that Miles Morales has, been integrated into the 616 continuity pretty seamlessly. So we'll see if they can do that with Gwen. We'll see. The writer is Stephanie Phillips. She recently wrote this year Cap Wolf and the Howling Commandos. Have to admit, I didn't read that one. Artist is Chris Campagna, artist on Red Goblin. Didn't read that one either. So I don't know about the creative team or anything, but it is interesting seeing that they're trying to integrate Gwen into 616. That comes out April 10th. So let's see. So now only Uncle Ben and Batman's parents are de facto dead in comics. Well, I've talked about it. Marvel editorial makes you fear for any characters that you like. Trying to showcase that Spider-Verse energy. Probably. Okay, you're a little less scared because you like her as a writer. That's good. Let's see. I think it's a great idea. My son loves Spider-Gwen. It's for a new generation of fans. You know, we the comics readers think of Gwen as coming from the 616. I mean, this Earth 65, right? And while I was just gonna say, like, but when you think about the mainstream audiences, they've met Gwen in basically three places: the two Spider-Man animated movies that are the Spider-Verse movies, which already have all the characters crossing over. So it's like, yeah, you know that they're from another universe supposedly, but they're all interacting from the get-go. Or there's that Spidey and His Amazing Friends cartoon on Disney, um, which just has Miles, Peter, and Gwen going on adventures as a trio. So I think that mainstream people are used to seeing Gwen interact with Spider-Man and the other characters. We'll see. We'll see. Here's the thing. You do get some story mileage with it if she gets shunted over to this universe. Because let me just say here, a mysterious force moves Gwen into this universe and she needs to adjust to her new life. As in, we're not merging the universes and she's alive. No, like the Gwen Stacy of this world is dead. Her father, Captain Stacy, is dead. How does she start a life like that? So that could be interesting. Do an episode about Gwen Stacy's death and its repercussions? Potentially. Potentially. So we'll see. I love what Stephanie did with Grimm. Grimm is a good book. Grimm is a good book. That's what I mean. Yeah. Captain Stacy is dead in. Sorry, I clicked the wrong thing. Captain Stacy is dead in this. So she wouldn't have much of a network, would she? That's a lonely, scary existence. Like all of a sudden you don't have anybody that you know. We'll see though. We'll see what happens. There are some other Stacy characters that have been introduced into the Spider-Man books, so who knows? Maybe she'd have some family. There's a bunch of like upcoming stuff for the spring that I'll be talking about, and this one is Marvel's launching a new Deadpool series. There's the cover for it. So we've got writer Cody Ziegler, who apparently did the Miles Morales Spider-Man book. Artist Roger Antonio did Carnage. They're going to have volume 10, believe it or not. This is the 10th volume of Deadpool, issue number 1 this April. And obviously, that's meant to tie in with the buzz on the third Deadpool movie that's coming out in that summer. It says that the relaunch will focus on Wade and his mutant daughter Ellie and his new nemesis Death Grip. Obviously, I can guess at the jokes that they'd come up with Death Grip. I did not follow Deadpool enough. I had no idea that he had a daughter. That's news to me. I just did not know. We shall see. Death Grip better include lots of masturbation jokes. Yes, well, I thought that kind of went without saying. Let's see. Those are aim, hydra, and hand soldiers. That's a lot. Well, what does he do? He's a mercenary for hire. Those are the kind of people he goes after. Yes, that makes sense to me. As someone who hasn't read any Daniel Warren Johnson books, where do you recommend I start? I don't think you could go wrong with any of them per se. If you want something that's, you know what, go with Do a Powerbomb. Go with Do a Powerbomb, I think. But if you want something a little more serious than Do a Powerbomb, then I'd say Extremity. But you can't go wrong with any of it. Good question. Oh, she might not be Wade's biological daughter. That could make some sense. I honestly thought that Rick Remender did a lot of good stuff with Deadpool in his Uncanny X-Force run. He really made Wade a father figure to Genesis, the sort of like potential future apocalypse. It was really interesting. So that's one piece of X-Men news. Get ready for like about 10 more pieces of X-Men news. This is going to be a lot, folks. Marvel teases their future with Timeless. This is just a snippet. So just to be clear, this book is coming out tomorrow, okay? Issue 1 of Timeless. And if you go to Bleeding Cool, they have some scans of panels in it that are out of context, so it's really hard to know exactly what we're seeing, whether it's a glimpse or if it's something more than that. But Marvel is teasing at some of the things that could be happening for its characters in the future. For instance, a return of the Danger Room for X-Men. It seems like the Danger Room is featured in one panel, although it seems like it might be Apocalypse is imprisoned in it. So we'll see. I don't know. Doctor Strange and Clea, his girlfriend, or maybe wife now, seem to be holding a baby. Is that theirs? I don't know. Doctor Doom is wearing the cape of the Sorcerer Supreme. So maybe that's something that happens. It shows the new Punisher, Joe Garrison, fighting a War Machine Punisher. Could that be Frank Castle back from Weird World? I don't know. Could be somebody else, but it's just like Punisher versus Punisher. One thing shows the return of Terror Incorporated. I never thought I'd see that book again. That was a character technically named Shrek. Terror Inc. was like a 13-issue series in the 90s. Basically, Terror could pull off any part of his body and replace it with somebody else's body part, and he would gain that ability. So, like, if he took Daredevil's nose, he'd gain Daredevil's great smelling abilities, things like that. It looked like they might have been hinting at a Civil War 3. It looked like Iron Man was controlling the Serpent Society. I don't know. And finally, even on the cover here, we see some of this. It looks like old version of Luke Cage or Power Man and a New Moon Knight. Weird stuff. I really don't know what any of that could be, whether they're promising to do all of those things or if it's just potential weird things that could happen. I don't know. I really don't. All the way back in 2013, Deadpool had a daughter? Huh. Totally missed that. I guess I'm just, Deadpool isn't a book I always follow religiously. Can have some good stories in it. I'm not saying it doesn't. I just don't watch it a lot. Yeah, Terror Incorporated. Pretty weird one. I never thought I'd see that character pop up again. Marvel teased their Blood Hunt event. Lots of teases. They released this cover, and if you go to a lot of the different, websites that cover upcoming comics, for instance, I think AIPT has these pages. They show some interior pages. This event starts May 1st. It's obviously a vampire-centric event for the Marvel Universe. Written by Jed MacKay, Art by Pepe Larraz. He's great. Colors by Marta Gracia. Marta Gracia is definitely one of the better colorists out there. Marvel's lucky to have Marta. And here's the premise. The skies have gone dark, the sun hiding its face from the carnage to come. The children of the night, the vampires, have risen from the dark and hidden places of the world, one to drown the Marvel Universe in blood. It's written awkwardly. Earth's final night has fallen. Can even the heroes of this doomed world stem the tide of blood that is to come? Join the Avengers, Blade, Bloodline, Spider-Man, Hunter's Moon, Tigra, Doctor Strange, and Clea as the dance of death begins. It's a lot of people going up against vampires. If you don't know, Jed MacKay has been writing Moon Knight, Avengers, and Doctor Strange, so he was pretty well situated to come up with an idea that could use them and more for this vampire story. But I will be honest, vampires have always been just a little niche, like basically only addressed by Blade and Doctor Strange, with this potential exception of Dracula has gone up against, say, the X-Men before. I've always wanted to see like Spider-Man and the Avengers and stuff like that go up against an army of vampires. I really have wanted to see that in the Marvel Universe. So that could be fun. We'll see. Exactly right. It is truly Morbin time. Spider-Man should definitely shout that. Sounds like the DLC story from the Marvel Midnight Suns video game. Oh, I never played that. What if DC versus vampires, but Marvel? Yeah, I didn't read that either, but I like that idea. That's true. Captain America did kill Baron Blood. Baron Blood, famous vampire in the Marvel Universe. The Montesi formula did eliminate vampires for a while, but somehow they made their way back. I don't exactly know how they came back. The Montesi formula, if you don't know, was like a Doctor Strange plot line where it eliminated all the vampires in the Marvel Universe. And honestly, yeah, I think for like years they just didn't have any vampires. It was You love Cap Wolf on comic tropes. I liked playing Cap Wolf. The vampires walked it off. There's probably some space vampires out there. Okay, now I'm thinking I want this to happen, and then like Captain Marvel or somebody like finishes this story and goes off in a spaceship to solve some sort of like, space crime, and Earth vampires infect, say, the Kree or the Skrulls. Alien vampires, but like aliens that we know. Like, wouldn't that be cool if all of a sudden, like, Ronan or the Super Skrull, somebody like that was a vampire? That could be a lot of fun. See, and it should honestly, at that point, become like a Guardians of the Galaxy story. Like they're going up against some, it would basically be a Annihilation, but with vampires. That could be funny. The Life Force vampires versus Avengers. If you haven't seen Life Force, oh my God, it's got just like that's alien vampires. And it's essentially an excuse to have like the most beautiful woman ever just walk around naked through the whole movie. She's a vampire, and she's an alien, so she doesn't care. It's so trashy, but it has like Patrick Stewart in it. It's crazy. It's crazy. I'm sorry, but like as fun as like this sounds, and to me this sounds fun. Superheroes versus vampires sounds fun, but now I really kind of want to see space vampires. Like, yeah, I want to see like Drax and Gamora and all of them go up against, the Shi'ar Empire. Like, have a gladiator get turned into a vampire. That could be fun. I don't know. Could be fun. Marvel has released an X-Men teaser, if you call this image that I'm showing you a teaser, which I think it is. It obviously, it doesn't have art, so it's not as impactful as some of the other things that I've shown. But yeah, it looks like a lot of you guys do like Life Force. That's cool. It's been seen in slow-mo so many times. Last 30 minutes of Life Force are great apocalypse vibes. You guys are funny. So yeah, let's talk about what's coming up with X-Men. What's coming up with them? So first of all, we've got the old logo, not the very first logo, but the one that was used for the longest run. I like that logo. Um, does ashes refer to the phoenix? Got the subtitle from the ashes. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe. By the way, I also this is just the graphic designer in me. I I wish they didn't see they got these two lines here that are following the same perspective as this, but they didn't make these letters like follow the second perspective here, because like this is a 2-point perspective that the X-Men logo is in, and they didn't make these letters, they only followed one of those perspectives. It's like, no, you're using 2-point perspective, so sorry, that's driving me nuts. Marvel said that all of their X titles are going to relaunch in July, so they're starting fresh essentially. Basically, they've promised that it's the end of the Krakoa era. I don't know if that means completely back to basics or if it's something new, but they're moving on from that era, and that's fair. Totally unimportant here, but there was an X-Men trade paperback from the ashes. That was the subtitle of it. It was a collection of some Claremont issues from like about 1981. I made a notation of which issues that was. That was like they had the issues were done by like Paul Smith, John Romita Jr., probably Arthur Adams. Anyway, so we'll see. Trying to appeal to 90s aesthetics, maybe it's going to. Sorry, I pointed it out, Mark. It was just, yeah, the perspective was driving me nuts. No more Hellfire galas. No, I think that we're done with those. That was fun while they did it, but it's fair. There's so many X-Men titles that no, you need more jumping on points, in my opinion, if you're going to try to make all that stuff interconnected. Or just promise me that each title is just doing its own thing. It's in the same universe, but I don't want to have to go back and forth so much. I just don't want to. So yeah, I'm okay with them moving past the ability to clone and reincarnate. Essentially, like that was interesting as a sci-fi concept, kind of like once, and then as soon as like that existed, I was like, I'm ready to move on. Made me uncomfortable that so many X-Men were willing to like just go on like a suicide mission and just be like, oh well, my backup memories will be like put into a clone body. I'm like, but that's not technically you. Like, why are you so okay with that? I never, it never worked for me. I was glad Storm didn't die and do that, but whatever. Yeah, sorry, this is really driving me nuts. The X-Men is on a 2-point perspective grid here. From the Ashes is only on 1. This could be fun. This is sort of what I'm talking about. Like, if you're going to do X-Men, I love the idea that there's only one X-Men book. So they at least have this, the upcoming Ultimate X-Men. That'll be the only X-Men book, at least for now, in this world. And we've got like a premise, and we've got a new cover. This is by Peach Momoko. So Isako Ichiki is a teenage girl who just wants to live a normal life, go to school, hang out with her friends, ignore the political strife broiling over after the events of Ultimate Invasion. But life has other plans for her. In Japan, urban legends have sprung to life and brought some unusual new powers with them. Meet Armor, Maystorm, and a group of new Ultimate X-Men, the likes of which you've never seen before. So it sounds like the main character is Armor, a character created by Joss Whedon and John Cassaday, if I'm remembering right. Wait a minute. It could have been Grant Morrison? Did Grant Morrison create Armor? I don't think so. I think it was Whedon and Cassaday. Hard to say. But obviously, Peach Momoko is incredibly popular. They're letting her do sort of whatever she wants. So I don't think we can go into this expecting that mutants necessarily even means the same thing that it always has. Like, they're going to be mutants, but they might be supernatural based, or it might still just be like, a quirk of genetic fate, or maybe this is more of a planned thing. I don't know. But I like that it was. I like that it's going to just be one title, basically, do its own thing, let Peach go nuts creatively. I wish Marvel and DC would do a little bit more of this. Just give a title to the creator and go, do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. I was right. It was Whedon and Cassidy. I was going off my memories, and I was like, might be right, might not be. The estate of Neil Adams might sue for the name? What, Armor? Or, I don't know. I don't get it. I missed something, I think. Armor was Whedon and Cassidy. Armor was a good character. Wolverine works very well as a gruff mentor character. He's had Kitty Pryde and Jubilee in the movies, Rogue. In the comics, it was just at a point where Jubilee and Kitty Pryde weren't in, the sort of the main X-Men continuity, and so they created Armor, and he had a new character that he was the mentor to. I also, by the way, there was a brief time where Cannonball, Sam Guthrie, had been moved up from the New Mutants into the X-Men finally. That I was kind of cool with. And in the Wolverine title, Larry Hama put Wolverine into sort of a mentor role for Cannonball for a while. And I thought that actually worked pretty darn well. Oh, was there a continuity comics character named Armor? I don't remember. That's okay. Okay. People are saying that there was. Got it. Totally. Sorry. Totally went over my head. Don't remember that. Yep. LCD and Albert. But anyway, I think that he works well in that way. It softens him just enough because he's allowed to sort of be a gruff asshole, but he has like his limit. Yeah. Anyway, I hope this is good. Who knows? But I am interested. March coming up real soon. More X-Men stuff. I know. I told you there was a lot. I think there's even one more X-Men piece after this. Marvel's launching an X-Men 97 prequel comic. So let me explain what they mean by that. First of all, this is going to be a 4-issue series. Okay. And it's going to serve as a prelude to the upcoming Disney Plus animated series of the same name. The writer is Steve Fox, been doing a lot at Marvel lately. Artist Salva Espin. Don't know artist Salva Espin. This is not Salva's work, by the way. This is Todd Knock that did this cover. Todd Knock. So I have to admit, I don't really know who this is. This is created, they say, in close collaboration with the showrunners of the cartoon. It's supposed to be an official companion, and yeah, so this is coming out in March, which gives us an idea that probably the animated series will also be sometime in the spring. And finally, this is meant to bridge the gap between the original 90s cartoon and this sort of like reboot / continuation. But that was a pretty beloved cartoon. I was of an age where I saw a bunch of the first season, and I don't know the exact timing, but at some point there, I was at college, and so I didn't have time to watch a lot of cartoons. It was more like late night TV at a certain point. So I don't know the X-Men cartoon super well. Of the bits that I've seen, I felt like it was always a pretty solid adaptation. They literally tried to adapt directly a lot of comic book stories, and the only wrinkle there was they gave them a team that was a lot of sort of like modern day X-Men. So there'd always be a little bit of a twist because, like in the original story, characters like, say, Gambit or Jubilee were not a part of it. So yeah, that was always interesting. But I think a lot of people love that cartoon. I loved that cartoon. Yeah, that team could do this book. They were pretty good. Okay. So a prequel to a show that takes place only a few months after the original series finally. Something like that. Something like that. Espen drew Wolverine First Class. Got it. Did not read that book, I have to admit. Yeah, the theme song was good. Hey, was that theme song by that one guy, Saban, that like, you know, made things like the Power Rangers show and stuff? Was it? I think it was him. I don't know. I hope a finale for Spider-Man animated series is finally made. Peter reuniting with Mary Jane. Hey, never say never at this point, you know? I watched the series online a few years ago and it held up fairly well. They did a good take on it. I graduated from college in 97, but being such an X-Men fan since childhood, I tried watching it and wow, dialogue was over the top cheesy. Keep in mind, it was specifically aimed at younger viewers. You know, so like Shuki Levy. Well, he was a partner of Saban, so that does make sense. Hmm. You are young if you graduated in 2006. The theme was Ron Wasserman. Okay, well, he did stuff for Levy and Saban, like Power Rangers, right? Didn't Ron Wasserman write the original and some of the other versions of Power Rangers? Anyway, there are definitely a bunch of 90s events that the new cartoon could adapt. We talked about this, I think it was just last week. We know that there are some upcoming Marvel action figures based on the X-Men 97, including Madeline Pryor as Goblin Queen and the Executioner. So I think that that hints at Inferno and Executioner song being some things that they could adapt. That sounds fun. I wouldn't mind a cell of somebody like Wolverine from that show. That would be cool. Yeah. All right. But yeah, so this follows the events of the original cartoon, and as well as being sort of a prequel to set up whatever the status quo is for X-Men 97. Does that mean that characters like, you know, Bishop are regular members of the team now? I don't know. Maybe. Looks like Storm has her famous mohawk, so that could be cool. Can jump to the next piece of news. I think this is the last piece of X-Men news that I have, but there was a massive video game leak this past week, and some of that relates to Marvel. So there was a ransomware attack on Sony. Don't condone anything like that. That's terrible. Sony owns a game studio called Insomniac, pretty famous this year, obviously, Spider-Man 2, among other things. So yeah, Insomniac is partnered with Marvel. According to a leaked internal roadmap, things could change. So don't take this with a grain of salt, is what I'm saying. But at one point, this was internal information that was shared. It was dated from July. And it showed the studio's future lineup of licensed superhero games. And that included Marvel's Venom for next year, Wolverine for 2026. We did know about that. Marvel's Spider-Man 3 for 2028. That's not really a surprise. And then this one, Marvel's X-Men for 2030. That one we hadn't heard anything about. So, that's got to be a little tough when that news comes out before you're ready to talk about it. Like, probably no actual work has gone into a game like this. And now people are going to have some expectations already. I don't know if they adapted When God Loves, Man Kills. That would be interesting if they did. Poor Insomniac. I feel so bad. Not only were their future games leaked, but the personal info of a lot of employees too. I didn't even know that part, Owen. That's terrible. That's terrible. That's too bad. That's too bad. I'm not going to feel bad for a big company like Sony, but Insomniac is a smaller thing, and it's always made up of people. So I feel bad for the people involved. Oh man, a Hulk game could be a lot of fun. For its era, those Hulk Unleashed games that they made like 2 of those. Those were pretty fun. I won't say no to bulk. I don't know what bulk is. Sorry. Maybe that was a joke that I missed. Sorry, folks. Moving on, finally. Still in the Marvel universe, though, a little bit. There's a rumor this week that the MCU is now planning a Young Avengers movie. Let me break that down. So, this comes from Hollywood insider Daniel Rickman. Daniel RPK tends to get a lot of stuff right, to be honest. He definitely has his sources in movie studios. He reported, and so take it with a grain of salt. This is a rumor, but he can be accurate. Reported that Marvel Studios was originally planning on doing Young Avengers, but as a Disney Plus show, and that those plans have changed. Kevin Feige has decided he would like this to be a film, and so it's being developed as such now. It's said to be headlined. This is the only piece of it that we know for sure. Said to be headlined by Iman Vellani as Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan. That makes a lot of sense to me. You know, if there was a Young Avengers, she should probably be the person that brings that team together. That's just in keeping with who the character is. As for who else could be in it, you know, we've got a lot of potential cast members. I didn't even list them all, but we've got Hawkeye, Kate Bishop. The Marvels movie seemed to promote that could be a thing. America Chavez would be like basically of the right age range. Cassie Lang, Scott Lang's daughter, known as Stature in most of the comics. We've got Riri Williams was introduced in the last Black Panther movie. There's more, you know. We've seen the kid that becomes Patriot. We've technically seen versions of Wanda's kids that become Speed and Wiccan, although I would argue they're too young. If you wanted to do Kid Loki, you've got Loki. Iron Lad would be a variant of Kang, but younger, so you could go with anyone. There's a lot of characters that would be very easy to introduce for the Young Avengers. I think it would be smart to put some of those together and play off the chemistry. I think that team superhero movies are fun. They can be. They can be. Kids these days making Avengers and all, exactly. They could join. Well, they could join if they were from another reality, I guess. Kid Loki would be nice. They already did an animated movie years ago called Next Avengers. Whoops. I think they're aging up Speed and Wiccan. They could. Aunt May should be on the team. Now you're talking. Now you're thinking outside the box and giving us some good ideas. Yeah. Oh, right. Hulk's son Scar could also be in it. They've got a lot of potential, like teen into young 20s or so characters that they could easily say are Young Avengers that they've already set up. So it could be a lot of fun. Right. It would be a fusion of Young Avengers and Champions. It wouldn't necessarily be a straight adaptation of the original Young Avengers comic at this point, probably. I think that's unlikely anyway. But I don't think you need anything too deep to just put together some of these teen and 20-something characters and form a team. And I feel like they'd come across as underdogs because, you know, they don't have the same level of authority as, like, you know, Captain America and Nick Fury. I hate that idea, Beowulf. Just throwing that out there. I don't think that that's a good idea. I'm just giving you a hard time. All right. Hey, I don't think any of you had this on your checklist for comics that would be made in 2024. Paul Reiser. Mad About You's Paul Reiser. Diners, Paul Reiser. Or, relevant to this, Aliens star Paul Reiser returning to Aliens. What? Let me get into it. So first of all, Marvel is doing its first What If comic outside of the Marvel universe. You know, What If is always Uatu the Watcher looking at, you know, what if Spider-Man slipped and broke his neck and Daredevil had to fill in for him for a day? What if the Fantastic Four had a fifth member? What if Wolverine lost his third claw? Yes, Stranger Things, Paul Reiser, Chad, probably would have been the most relevant thing I could have said. Sorry. That probably would have been Beverly Hills Cop, Paul Reiser. And he's going to be in the fourth one. So that would have been relevant too. Um, yeah, he was really young, but he was in Diner. So anyway, they're doing What If Aliens. This is a real book Marvel's doing, and I'm not against that at all. What if with like their 20th Century Fox stuff, like Predator, Aliens, and Planet of the Apes? Yeah, give me some What If there. That does not sound bad. Anyway, he played Carter Burke in the movie Aliens, which is a fantastic movie. If for some reason you have not seen it, Aliens is awesome. Great movie. Great movie. He's writing this alongside his son, Leon. And I clearly did not copy and paste this right, because I did not mean damn F. Goldberg. I meant Adam F. Goldberg, Hans Rodionoff, and Brian Volk Weiss. Why does it need 5 writers? I don't know. I don't know. Whoa. Sorry, I bumped my microphone. Art by Guy Villanova. I'm guessing at that. What's the premise? It's going to follow a story where company man Carter Burke somehow survives the Hadley's Hope terraforming colony disaster. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. But Paul Reiser was a piece of crap in the Aliens movie. Yes, he was a villain. And we're going to follow what would happen if he somehow survived. Does it mean that he becomes a better person? I don't know. Does it mean that he brings aliens back to the company on Earth? I don't know. It could mean a lot of things. Presumably what happened here is Paul Reiser's son, Leon, wanted to write a comic. So Paul got involved. I'm just guessing. But I'm not against this idea. I'm not against it at all. If they want to do other What If Aliens books or something, that could be a lot of fun. And if it does well, yeah, spread it out to some of the other 20th Century Fox stuff that they own. S-Train says that Aliens and Mad About You is set in the same cinematic universe. Got it. Good. You want funny Paul Reiser instead of evil Wayland Utani Corporation cynicism? I can understand that, but yeah, before Mad About You, I would say that Paul Reiser was pretty well known for a bunch of dramatic roles. He got into doing more comedy stuff, but yeah. We will see what happens, but I don't think anyone was expecting this. I don't usually talk about everything that goes up for auction because there's always something valuable out there, but I did think that this was a pretty amazing issue is all. Look at this. I've never really seen one like this. This is Amazing Spider-Man #1, graded by CGC at a 9.8. That is a really high grade, especially for a book from 1961, 1963, I think 61. I don't know, somewhere around there. So yeah, Heritage Auctions has a great condition slabbed copy of Spider-Man #1 up for auction. Pre-bids have entered the 6 figures. I'll break that down a little bit more. The comic is from a collection that was put together by an employee of a museum who stored the comics in tight packs on the museum's premises. So anyway, somebody that took really good care of it for a really long time. The current bid, as of last night when I looked at it, was a little over $350,000. But those are like sort of the pre-bids that you can do online, like up to a certain amount. And then like the auction day is coming and then it will like shoot way up above that. Best piece of comparison I had was just that like a copy in a lot worse condition sold in July for over $500,000. I've never seen an Amazing Spider-Man #1 in a 9.8. So, boy, I don't want to be too crazy, but there's a part of me that thinks it could go for really close to $1 million. That's Hey, I would love an Amazing Spider-Man #1 graded at a 1.8 just to like have a little piece of history. I would totally do something like that. But yeah. Oh, you guys are talking about transfer movies? Dude, you're talking to a guy who definitely knows his transfers lore. Jack Death. I like the first transfers for a for like, a essentially Full Moon Studios movie. I think it was called something else for that first era. The first Transfers movie is decent, low budget action adventure affair, and I guess they're talking about it because Helen Hunt was in it. Helen Hunt also on Mad About You, which had Paul Reiser. I'm assuming that that's how this all got started. Tim Thomerson is a really funny and charismatic guy. I don't think you'll have seen him in too many movies. The things that you see this guy Tim Thomerson in, if you don't know Transfers, he was in, I want to say it was the John Candy movie, Who's Harry Crumb? He was just sort of a tennis preppy jerk guy. And he was a farmer dad, good guy in Near Dark, which is a fantastic vampire movie. Really, really good, gritty, grounded vampire movie, Near Dark. Um, but he also played the lead role in Trancers, which is just funny because it comes from super low budget studio, Full Moon, and he did. I believe he appeared 6 times because there are 5 Trancers movies, and oh no, I was thinking of his character Dollman, right? Because he also played Dollman in a couple movies. So I was thinking of Dollman. Yeah, he did it 5 times. Transformers. Trancers 1 is good. Trancers 2 still has Helen Hunt and is decent, maybe even a little more money. Trancers 3, all of a sudden you start losing all the characters that you'd seen in the previous movies. And then Trancers 4 and 5 was basically just one movie filmed back to back, and they split it into like 70-minute movies with like really long credit sequences that are just black text on black background, white text is. Oh yeah, he was in Cyborg. Good call. Good call. Anyway, that's boy. What talk about an aside. But Trancers is not a bad movie. It's sort of like, how to describe it. It starts in the future, and there's like a guy who can mind control people, and so they're just called like Trancers. They're not quite zombies, but they're just like mindless henchmen. Okay, but the guy figures out a way to go back in time, and they've got a unique way of doing time travel for at least the first 2 movies, and then they throw it out the window. The way you do time travel is you're hooked up to this like bed, and your consciousness goes down the line of your ancestors, and like then you take over the body of one of your ancestors wherever you're headed. So you don't physically get transported, but your consciousness goes back. And I thought that was always a cool way to do time travel. But then, like by number 3, all of a sudden he's got like a cyborg partner called Sharky that gets destroyed within the first few seconds, and like new bosses, and 4 and 5, like the time travel doesn't work right, so he goes to a parallel dimension full of vampires that can be out during the day, and it's like set in medieval times. It's not very good. Peter David wrote that though. Peter David, comic book, great. Peter David. All right, enough about Trancers. I keep wanting to say Transformers. Hey, speaking of Transformers, this was totally intentional because I wanted to segue into talking about Daniel Warren Johnson. No, this was Daniel Warren Johnson's debut comic, Space Mullet, and it's coming to print, technically again. I'll explain. So, this is a sci-fi webcomic originally about a washed-up ex-space marine and his alien partner trying to do good in the galaxy. It ran from 2012 to 2017. That was how Daniel Warren Johnson put out into the world what he could do to get work. Is he did it? He just published it on its own. You can still find it, spacemullet.com. And yeah, it was printed by Dark Horse, a version of it in 2016. But this is going to be a new remastered version through Image, completely redone lettering, and an all-new unreleased chapter. Anything new by Daniel Warren Johnson? I guess I'm a mark. Sign me up. I'm going to get it. Whoops, I thought that there was more to it, but I guess not. So, has anybody out there actually read Space Mullet? I have, and it's it it's not necessarily as goofy as it sounds from just the title. Is it a little tongue in cheek? No question. It's some goofiness, but it's got some heartfelt drama. Like, you start to care for the characters, you get to know them really well. So yeah, it's got some good stuff. But yeah, you can look it up online. Just look up Space Mullet, and I'm pretty sure the first result should be the website. You could read it there for free. But a lot of us like reading it in print. It's faster and easier to a degree. So it's coming a remastered version through Image Comics. I think that's exciting. You read it back when it was coming out? Recommended DWJ Comics. What's worse, a mullet or a rat tail? The rat tail. The mullet can look good on certain people if it's well trimmed. Here's some new action figures based on a comic. Diamond Select is making them. Every once in a while, Diamond Select makes some cool toys. I thought I'd mention this. So they're making a Rick and a Michonne from The Walking Dead. They're obviously, as you can see, in black and white, like the comic. This is specifically based on the comic, not like the TV show or a video game or anything like that. They're going to be in 1/10 scale, so about 7 inches tall, 16 points of articulation. That's not bad. And they're going to come packaged in a full color window box with some accessories. Not a bad sculpt. I like Walking Dead. So yeah, I thought that looked kind of cool in black and white. And we'll see. Select is absolutely stepping up their figure game as Hasbro is drowning. Well, Hasbro had all those layoffs last week. That was rough. That reminds me of the old McFarlane Walking Dead figures. Yeah, a little bit. Yep, no question. I think that these are just a little beefier, like bigger. I don't know. Has Valiant made any strides lately? The characters have so much potential. Valiant does have some comics, I think, coming out tomorrow. I'm pretty sure, well, probably just one, but I think that they've got like an Exo Man-O-War comic coming out tomorrow. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Respect the black and white comic reference. I like it too. I find it amusing that Walking Dead kind of made being black and white its trademark. It's good business. Walking Dead is a tremendously successful comic, just to be clear. Tremendously. Because people are still getting into it thanks to like the shows and everything. And they just blast through the trade paperbacks. Yeah, it's a very successful, ridiculously successful comic. How many hands has that Rick got? Oh, I didn't look. I don't know what era this is. That's true. It might only be one-handed Rick. Might only be one-handed Rick. How dare you, sir? What else we got for news? Just 2 more things. That's what it's priced at. $29.99. Kind of a lot, but honestly, on the other hand, that's about what figures go for these days. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a 6-inch figure for like less than about 25 new at retail. Some of it might get discounted, but yeah. It's got both. Okay, so both hands and a stump. Got it. It's not that they canceled it, but Fear the Walking Dead wrapped up. Both the original Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead wrapped up, but they've got the Daryl spinoff is still going. I'm trying to remember if that one that was like with the kids is still going or not. And then they've got the Rick and Michonne sort of mini series coming up. So yeah. You know, from a company like Diamond as compared to a bigger toy company like Hasbro, $29.99 is kind of what it's going. Oh, right. There's also the Maggie Negan show. I knew that there was one more. I knew there was one more. You stopped watching after the first season? I don't think Walking Dead is a bad show. I think I like the comic more overall, but it got some good actors in it, and that carries a lot of weight. That's fair. When Frank Darabont left, I wish he'd been able to, have a peaceful way to move forward. The AMC was very nervous about Walking Dead initially and was really slashing the budgets for season 2. And then they realized that it was really taking off in a massive way, and so they started giving them money to actually produce whatever they basically wanted to do. If Darabont had stayed on, who knows exactly what it might have been. I think some of the actors would have stayed on from the beginning. No way to know. No way to know. But I mean, Steven Yeun, he's awesome. I don't know. I got a weak spot for Walking Dead, but I did stop watching the show shortly after Glenn dies. Old spoiler. But I intend to come back to it and just binge it at some point. This looks fun to me. I think that the people involved are pretty cool. There's a Joker parody film, and it's finally getting released, like in actual movie theaters and everything. It's called The People's Joker. So The People's Joker is a queer parody of the DC Comics universe. Queer is in, like the main character is trans, but it's locked in a theatrical release date, April 5th. You'll be able to see this movie. It's written, directed, starring comedian Vera Drew. It was going to air originally in the Toronto Film Festival earlier this year and then got pulled. I think that they were nervous about, like, what, does parody cover this? But I think it does. I think that they're okay. Didn't really talk about Duke yet, Diana. I'll probably be talking about it next week because the comic itself comes out tomorrow. I don't want to talk about any sort of spoilery news tonight because Duke issue 1 comes out tomorrow. But I did get to read an advanced copy, and I will say, folks, I liked it. I liked it quite a bit. Duke #1. So that's the G.I. Joe portion of this shared Energon universe with Void Rivals and Transformers. And I'll just say early, Duke gives us like a version of the main character who's really an amazing hero, right? He's very capable, nearly Captain America. But it also does some great stuff that really sets him up as an underdog in this situation. And it creates some really interesting mystery stuff because we're starting from scratch in this universe. It does some really interesting stuff with the Mars Corporation and potentially what's out there in terms of threats where this world would need a G.I. Joe team. It really surprised me with a couple of the characters that they decided to use early on and how they're using them. I'll go into more detail next week when I review it, but it's really exciting. It's really exciting. I don't know if Duke's going to be around long enough to have a letters column, but probably. It honors the original character with a dose of real-world humanity. It does. It really does. Let me jump back to this Joker movie. I'm just talking in big generalities here. It's about this hero, the protagonist, moving to Gotham City to join the Upright Citizens Brigade improv troupe in a world where Batman monitors everyone. He's kind of a fascist. Her therapist is Dr. Crane, Scarecrow. Tons of characters from DC, just in a really silly way. Look at some of the co-stars it's got. Scott Aukerman, I think he's hilarious. Tim Heidecker, Maria Bamford, Bob Odenkirk. Some really great comedians in this movie, for what it's worth. I don't know if this is good or not. It's just weird enough that I am very curious to see what it is. Very curious. I don't know what to make of it. Christopher Nolan should do a realistic G.I. Joe movie. He does love James Bond, so never say never. Yeah, never say never. A bunch of UCB players, yeah. Yep, that Bob Odenkirk. Keep in mind, Bob Odenkirk is from like, Mr. Show and like, all of his friends are like comedian guys. So yeah. I've heard both good reviews and awful reviews. Exactly. I don't know what to make of it. It's just so weird, but it's comic book related. It has a bunch of comedians that I like. I've met Scott and Tim. I think that they're really funny guys. I'm curious. I didn't read any of those Batman One Bad Day books, and I feel like I maybe missed out. I heard a lot of good things about them. We'll see. All right, last piece of news I'll do. Manga news. I just thought this was interesting because One Piece is definitely like the manga and anime in some ways to displace. Yeah, it's legal. It's covered on fair use covers satire and parody. So yes, as long as you can't confuse it for the original product. I don't think you can in this. Now, I think you say probably not. I'm not a lawyer, but I think that they've got their ducks in a row. If they've got a distributor and some movie theaters that are willing to carry it, I'm positive some lawyers have been involved and are comfortable that like it's parody. Let me wrap up this last piece of news because I want to talk about some of the comics. So we've got Jujutsu Kaisen outpacing One Piece. That's interesting. What am I talking about? Well, Jujutsu Kaisen overtook One Piece for the most views this past month on Shueisha, their publisher, their Manga Plus platform. They publish stuff like One Piece, Jujutsu Kaisen. Shueisha has just about everything. What, like My Hero Academia? Do they have I don't know if they do Spy Family. I'm trying to remember. I don't think they do, but they've got like, oh, hold on. What am I thinking? I've got like a relatively recent Weekly Jump. They've got like Boruto. They've got some sort of new ice skating manga. Yeah, One Piece. I don't know. I'm trying to see if any of these others. The manga's at a sort of weird place where a bunch of famous series are wrapping up or just wrapped up. So there's a bunch of new ones that are just starting to come out. Like whoever this guy is, I don't know what his name is. I don't know. Some swordsman. Who knows? Who knows? I'll put this aside. I'll just wrap it up. So anyway, Jujutsu Kaisen got more views than One Piece. Let me put that in a little context, though. It is worth noting that Jujutsu Kaisen is currently wrapping up its final arc. So that's got a lot of extra attention from its readers. They want to see how it plays out. Also, at the same time, the anime is currently adapting what many fans have listed as their most popular arc, the Shibuya incident. Trust me, as somebody that was in Japan as that anime was launching, oh my God, were people going crazy for it. I was staying in Shibuya when that anime started, and they had like a pop-up display near the Shibuya train station giving out these fake newspapers, acting as though this fictional event in Shibuya was happening, and the crowds were insane. The crowds were just insane. It was crazy. So I've got that. And then finally, One Piece right now as the manga, it's sort of in a more transitional, less action-packed arc, but does still have over 700,000 readers. So it's just that Jujutsu Kaisen right now is more popular for the past month, and so that's more like 1 million digital readers. Oh yeah, great question. When One Piece is finally ready to wrap up, that will be bonkers. That will be You'll hear about it. You'll hear about it. All right, let me close that and acknowledge this. I definitely understand what you said on Sunday about it, different people working in the big two. It's because I saw a video where Art Tibbert talked about how he got screwed over. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that he feels that way. That stinks. Great inker. Interesting. But Rebellious Monkey is talking about, I was just drawing on a live stream on Sunday, and he asked, do I think that Marvel and DC are corrupt? And I said, I can't quite answer that question yes or no, because, like, I don't think any company is technically corrupt so much as the leadership can be, but also the leadership is constantly changing. So it's a little I know that I sound elusive there. I'm not trying to protect them or anything. It's just that it's a little bit of a nebulous question to a degree. Let me add an extra camera here and zoom in a little before I show it to you. And we're going to go over some of the comics that came out this week. It was a big week for comics. It was a big, no, not that one, that one. And I'll do it like that. So I'll shift this over here. This is most of what I got this week. Not everything. Not everything. And I can't even go into like full reviews when I've got this much stuff. I've got to just sort of give you like some snippets and stuff. So, I got this as a Christmas present. I wanted to get this week, and fortunately, my mother-in-law found it in stock at her local Barnes and Noble and got it for me. This is a ghost story set at Christmas. Actually, 4 ghost stories, plus a framing device. Eric Powell is very well known, of course, for The Goon and other things. In this, he's created this funny framing story where, Victorian England, cold wintry day, Christmas Eve, a bunch of old crotchety people gather together, and then we start learning their names, which are Eric and Mike and Rebecca and James. They are the titular creators here, and they all tell each other a ghost story. So this is a short horror anthology. Each creator has told their own unique story in here. James Herron's is like a Victorian space odyssey with just 2 men trapped in tight confines, slowly going mad. We've got Becky Cloonan's is possibly my favorite of this, with this woman being followed by a man from the Civil War, I think, that like drowned himself. And boy, Becky Cloonan, what an artist. I think she's so underrated. Look at that. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. A lot of you probably know James Herron from Ultra Mega, but his scary stuff is good too. You can never go wrong with Mike Mignola. He does basically an adaptation of the Jabberwocky from Alice in Wonderland, but that's cool. Looks gorgeous. And finally, Eric Powell tells a story, which, now that I think of it, like, this is my favorite story. Becky's was my favorite art in this, but Eric's story is like a man comes to visit his friend but refuses to stay in the house, will only like camp on the grounds outside, and it deals with a very strange curse. But there is a tradition, for telling horror stories on Christmas Day. What's that one line in the Christmas song? There'll be tales of old glories and Christmases. No, that's not it. There'll be scary ghost stories and tales of old glories from Christmases long, long ago. It's the most wonderful time of the year. that refers to it. Obviously, A Christmas Carol, probably the most famous Christmas story, and that's, you could argue, I mean, it has ghosts anyway. I don't know how horrific it is. It all depends on the execution. For its time, I think that Dickens' story was pretty scary. Um, the Turn of the Screw, even earlier. So I think that like Christmas, there's something about it, like the middle of winter. It's dark, it's cold, it we feel sometimes lonely and stuff. It's really set itself up for a great setting for horror. Thank you, Rebellious Monkey, for the super chat. In that video, he explained he got screwed over by CB Cebulski and David Bogarth for accusing him of taking artists to DC Comics when reality, that's not true what he did. And honestly, that sucks. Well, I'll be honest, I don't follow 100% of what you're saying. I'm sorry that he had a bad experience there. I like a lot of things that Marvel and DC is doing, but I don't think that they're perfect as company by any stretch of the imagination. They also produce some crud, and I've had guys like Robert Kirkman and Rick Remender on, and they say that they did not love their time at Marvel either. So I respect Tom Brevoort. He's an editor at Marvel, probably their oldest tenured employee. I respect him, but that doesn't mean I respect all the editors or certainly the management. So anyway, the book for Christmas Carol is way more gnarly than any of the films. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I've read some Dickens, and my favorite is probably A Tale of Two Cities. But yeah, he tends to I mean, he was writing like chapters in the newspaper for most of his books, and so you had to be a little pulpy and get in and out with something exciting every few pages. So that makes sense. Oh, is he? That's interesting. Mikey Brown points out that Art Tibbert is part of Comicsgate. Well, then, yeah, that does flavor his words, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know. That does give us some background. It's pretty gnarly for sure. I'm excited for Duke tomorrow, Diana. I'll just sort of briefly talk about a few of these and get into more detail in a couple others. Superior Spider-Man, you'd think, well, why are a sequel to a story that kind of definitively wrapped up? How can you do it? This is really fun, folks. Superior Spider-Man originally was Dr. Octopus was able to put his mind into Peter Parker's body because he was dying. He took over, and he ultimately decided to try to be a better version of Spider-Man. Of course, he was a bit of a villain, but he kind of learned to care about some other people, and by playing the part of a hero, he became a bit of a better person, okay? At the end, he gave Peter back his body because he knew that only Peter, as Spider-Man, could save the woman that he loves, Anna. Story closed. Dr. Octopus is back these days, comic book stuff. It doesn't really matter why. But we get a flashback at the beginning. And while he was Spider-Man, he hired this woman to be a research assistant, and he screwed her over. He was going to make a power source. She actually figured out how to do it and sort of became like this sort of almost living son. And he locked her up. Okay, he exploited her. So now she's broken out. She doesn't know that Spider-Man was Dr. Octopus. She wants revenge on Spider-Man. And Dr. Octopus is like, great. That sounds awesome. And so we've got this new villain that's has legit reasons to be furious at Spider-Man, not knowing that she's technically mad at Otto Octavius. It's a good use of that story. It's pretty cool. Also, Dr. Octopus does now know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So this really puts Peter Parker on the back foot and puts Dr. Octopus in a great position. It's been fun. And it's art by Mark Bagley. You either like him or you don't, but I do. And I think that it's fun to see him working on Spider-Man. Thank you, Michael. Give a like if you can. It really helps the channel. Thank you. Yes, if you can just tap the like button, it really does help. Superior comic tropes where Infotron takes over my mind. It could happen. Here's a horror book I'll mention that's horror western, Canary, by Dan Panosian as artist, Scott Snyder as writer. I just want to point out, I think, some of the art, okay? Because Dan Panosian doesn't do tons of interiors these days. Let me see if there's a scene I want to pull up somewhere here that I really noticed that he did a lot of great work with the textures and the layouts. I'm just trying to find that page. Bear with me. I guess it was just this. Like we've got 3 people on horseback riding out to a mine from the town, and that is really pretty. I mean, this isn't very literal. I mean, this is like, some pretty weird, like, I don't know if that's gouache or watercolor or what, and then speckled with like whiteout or something, but it looks really effective as like the setting sun. Sorry, this is a super chat, so let me acknowledge that again. Thank you, by the way. What I'm trying to say, companies don't treat creators with respect, and it makes me afraid of getting abused by the two, end up getting blacklisted. If that's what you're worried about, I say just do your own thing, man. Nobody has to work for the big two anymore. And if you do, just know what you're getting into going in. You're working for a company on something they own, and you're getting, hopefully, a good paycheck for it and getting your name out there. But that is just work for hire, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. It might even be fun work, but just know what it is. As far as getting like blacklisted, that's only going to happen based on your work ethic and your attitude. Like, what do people need to be successful in comics or any industry? Talent, work ethic in terms of getting stuff out in a timely manner, and being kind, being easy to work with. If you hit all 3 of those things, you don't need to worry about anybody like, betraying or blacklisting you. They're not. They're going to like you. Oh my God, it's so true. Nice to see you, by the way, Randy. It's so true. Like, Dan Panosian has grown incredibly. He's a really, really talented artist. I mean, that's some fairly subtle but very effective expression work. This is a really, really good showcase for him as an artist. Thank you. I am Awakeify. Happy holidays. Looking forward to 2024. Me too. Me too. I can't wait to do my top 10 list of the year. So anyway, it's an effective horror story, but I just wanted to point out that this is some really this is the one I was thinking of. Look, let me zoom out a little. This is a 2-page spread. Look at that. Isn't that moody and evocative as well? I mean, it sets a scene. I love a well done establishing shot. And then you can like get away with all these, like, this is like kind of the fun stuff usually, just drawing faces, I think, as an artist. Like, hardly have to do anything for the background here. You can just focus on like some faces because you did all this work setting up a desolate, like warm, dusty, weedy type of environment. Really beautiful. I like it anyway. Zoom back in just a little. Incredible Hulk. Look. Do you want to see the Incredible Hulk go up against Ghost Rider? Because that's what this is. Look, Hulk smashes this World War II Ghost Rider's bike, and then it totally just reforms. This is a Ghost Rider who runs around with a gun and grenades because he's World War II style. It's not a Ghost Rider that we've met before. Owen's review says, I'm in the letters column for this issue. Okay. Oh, by the way, I also like this. When Ghost Rider goes away, since he's not actually taking over a person or anything, he's more of a true ghost. Nick Klein draws him like with like just sort of raggedy, and then draws like some skeletal features, and finally just sort of like a little bit of a dust outline as he fades away, leaving only a motorcycle behind. I thought it was very effective. Let's go to the letters column real quick, because we've got somebody in the chat that says that they were featured. Let's see. Could this be from a Hulkhead for Life, Owen Seiler? Could that be who we've got here? The very first letter here? Look at that. That's pretty cool. Loving the Hulk. And the 70s, 80s TV series holds up. It does. It's not quite as big, bombastic, and action-packed as like the comic. But you know what? They did some good human interest stuff. Bill Bixby really carried that show, in my opinion. The Hulk art might be the best art at Marvel right now. Let me think that through, Kyle. It's really good. It's definitely, I think Nick Klein is one of the best that Marvel has right now. There's some great stuff there. It's a good fit too. He's a good fit. Reminds me of some of the artists like, Gene Colan or something that like, draws with a really sort of sketchy style, like really moody and stuff. That is you. Congrats. Yeah, a lot of people have said that Ben Percy's Ghost Rider run is good. I haven't read that one. Wait, I like this. A flaming penny farthing. That's the bicycle with the huge front wheel and the tiny back wheel, folks. That would be pretty hilarious in its own way. Thank you for the super chat. You don't have to always super chat, but thank you for the kindness. I like the big two. I'm just afraid of one day working with them. It's like joining a union or something scary. Look, it's okay to want to work on these characters. Here's what I can say to like try to like, potentially put your mind at ease. Only work with them if the people that you are talking with seem trustworthy. You're going to have a good judge of character, and what happens happens. But I don't think you need to like worry about a problem until it's a problem, basically. I don't think that like the companies set out to screw over people. I think that like Kirkman and Remender both like say that they didn't love their experience, but they also don't say that they were like screwed over. And I'm sure that Marvel would take them back if they could. So, yeah. This is a fun run, folks. I've talked about it a little before on the show, but hey, the whole premise is there's this like dark monster called the Eldest that's constantly sending monsters after the Hulk. It's a good premise. I want to see what the payoff is, but in the meantime, I love the journey. And on a serialized comic, the journey can sometimes be the most important part. And the journey just involves Hulk fighting monsters. That's a really good thing to get to see every issue of Hulk. That's interesting. Now, Philip Kennedy Johnson happens to also be a good writer, so he's giving us some good human interest stuff with Hulk's new tag-along sidekick, Charlie, and hopefully we do have a good finale to this. I think that The Immortal Hulk by Al Ewing did have a satisfying conclusion. Sometimes in serialized comics, you're not going to get a satisfying conclusion to a whole run or an arc, but if the journey there was fun, then you had a bunch of good issues along the way. And for serialized superheroes that will never like end really, sometimes that's good enough. I have different standards for what I'll consider entertaining, if not incredible storytelling, if that makes sense. Hey, I was just talking about how Christmas is a good time for horror. I mean, look at some of this other stuff that was like for instance, last week we were talking about the Hellboy Winter Special. I just did Foregathered for Christmas. The Deviant is about a serial killer dressed up as Santa, but it's really about this writer, this guy who's researching it. The guy that got arrested for doing these serial killings Uh, he interviews him and some people around and everything, and it probably was not this guy that got arrested that was the serial killer. So um, it's just sort of like there's a creepiness to the whole affair. You know, I mean, look at how dark and foreboding it is. It doesn't have to look like that, but it adds to the tone, to the atmosphere. Talking to a serial killer is interesting. There's always a tension to that. This is a good horror book. Hey, who's it by? James Tynion. Art by Joshua Hickson. At this point, you know if you like James Tynion's horror writing. But if you don't know, then I'd say The Deviant is a fine place to start. Probably my recommendation would be Something is Killing the Children. It's popular for a reason. But yeah, it's a bit too creepy. It's pretty dark. This is bleak stuff. Yep, there he goes again, writing all the books. Is the Hellboy thing a brand new story? It is. Yep, it's just a one-shot that came out last week. Or maybe it was even 2 weeks ago now that I think of it. Sorry. It's called Hellboy Winter Special, subtitle The Yule Cat. Written and drawn by Matt Smith, who happens to draw a good amount like Mike Mignola. It isn't a copy of Mike Mignola, but he does a lot of similar things. It's really good. The Deviant is not a one-shot. What I was showing here is issue 2. It's a mini-series, okay? It's a mini-series. So it'll have an end. Should have a Christmas story about getting an ugly sweater, but the lead has a blind date. Oh my God, that's terrifying. Batman Offworld has been a surprisingly delightful miniseries. This is only issue 2. It's written by Jason Aaron and drawn by Doug Mahnke. I love Doug Mahnke's art. I think he's great. And the premise is very simple. This is a Batman early in his career who is for the first time dealing with aliens and outer space stuff. He went off into deep space and got abducted by a what would I call it? Like sort of like a crew of space pirates, okay? And he's been forced into just being a basic laborer. And most of the aliens are stronger or faster than him. So he spends his nights, he rebuilt this training robot that he calls Punchbot, or that calls itself Punchbot, I should say. And he learns the various weaknesses of the aliens, like where their soft spots are and stuff. There's also a Tamaranian, same species as Starfire. This is not Starfire, by the way. Eon is her name. And yeah, it's just a cool underdog story of Batman all of a sudden, like just constantly surprising these aliens with how tough he is, even though he looks like he couldn't hang with them. And he's building. They don't know to be afraid of a guy that dresses like this. They don't know what a bat is, but he's building the fear. He's building it from scratch, and that's kind of cool. And you get to see him just playing long term, and gain allies with his way of like sort of he's protecting a lot of the other weaklings that are sent on the same jobs as him, where you're not expected to even survive keeping the plant running and stuff like that. Wouldn't quite call it comeback of 60s Batman, although of course 50s and 60s Batman had a lot of sci-fi. This is grittier than that, but it's very fun. It's very cool. And you know what? You don't need to read any other Batman before or after. It's not like drenched in any sort of continuity. It's just early years Batman going outside of his comfort zone and still proving that he's really impressive and incredible. It's cool. I've said that right now, DC Comics probably has overall the most great artists that are working right now. Okay. I think that Doug Mahnke's a fantastic artist. They've got Dan Mora, doing stuff like World's Finest with Mark Waid. They've got Daniel Sampier doing Wonder Woman. They've also, like, I think it's smart. They've done this sort of Dawn of DC thing where it's not quite like a full reboot, but it's starting fresh with new creative teams. It's an easy time to read DC Comics right now. They've got a lot of great artists. World's Finest is Batman and Superman, and the story that is currently going on is them in the parallel universe that will one day become Kingdom Come. We're meeting Magog, the guy who trains Gog. Whoops. Oh, geez. Well, I didn't think that through very well, did I? I forgot to charge my camera. Yeah, exactly. Other great artists. Jorge Jimenez on Batman. He's one of the best right now. Anyway, World's Finest. I'm going to have to sort of do it more like this, folks, which is very amateurish, but it's got Batman and Superman teaming up to convince the Batman and Superman of this world that they're not villains. It looks incredible. Look, this is the birth of Gog from, what do you call it? Kingdom Come. Now, you don't have to have read Kingdom Come to appreciate this story, but if you have, it adds a little more context to who some of those characters are, and even makes some of them a little bit more sympathetic. You got to save Christmas. You got to save Christmas. What 5 comic characters will help? Oh, okay. I'll take Superman, Batman, Captain America, Doctor Strange, and the Flash. Bruno Redondo, they've got too. Look, I mean, not that Marvel doesn't have good comic artists. And trust me, Boom Studios, Image, even IDW have a lot of great artists out there right now. But DC has a lot of good artists right now. A lot of great artists. The camera, it's dead, Jim. I'm not even running long yet, but this has surprised me how good it is. Now, this is only issue 4 of Wonder Woman. This is the best superhero comic out there right now. Yeah, and I don't say that lightly. I really love a bunch of superhero books out there. I love Radiant Black. I love World's Finest that I was just going over. I love Incredible Hulk. I love She-Hulk. There's a lot of good superhero books. Wonder Woman is the best. And this is not even my favorite character, but it is so damned good. Thank you, Michael. Oh, I hope you do make more comics. That's so beautiful. That's awesome. This is such a beautiful issue, folks. Wonder Woman is being hunted by the American government because an Amazon has killed some people, okay? Now, it's all being manipulated by this weird, mysterious old guy who makes the president of the United States kiss his ring in this scene. So he's a total creep that we don't really like. But Wonder Woman, in the midst of all of this, takes this boy, Jack, who's like basically a Make-A-Wish kid. He's dying from cancer. Wonder Woman is his biggest, he's Wonder Woman's biggest fan. And Wonder Woman takes time out to spend the day with him. She takes him to Amazon Island. Flies in the invisible jet, by the way. That's kind of fun, right? A whole page for that? That's pretty cool. The art by Daniel Sampier is amazing. This is like a Wonder Woman that's like just beautiful but regal. I will also say that, like, even though it's really realistic, it's not stiff. Like, here's just sort of like a montage of Jack and Wonder Woman doing stuff all day, right? But none of these poses look like overly referenced or stiff. There's some real energy to what we're seeing here. Oh, I know that doesn't look great. I'm sorry that my main camera went out. Interesting world building, interesting uh, premise. It's making Wonder Woman like a total badass in some of the action scenes, but also like stunningly compassionate, like really willing to put herself like at risk for others. It makes her very likable. It really does. This is a fantastic comic. Fantastic. I really recommend it. Joshua Hayes, thank you for the super chat. Looks like we've got a question. All right. Gold, silver, bronze, 2-pack specials. Oh, it's a 2-pack special since you were away for 2 weeks. 3 favorite Christmas gifts received or given, and 3 comic characters to join Santa in his sleigh. All right. 3 favorite Christmas gifts received. I loved getting Thundercracker, the Transformer, when I was really young. Transformers were new. That was when they first came out. That was an exciting one that I remember. What's another really good one? My wife this year got me yoga classes. I think that that's going to be healthy, and I'm excited to use them. I think that that's a really thoughtful gift, and my sister always gives me really thoughtful gifts, usually something that will like help the show. Like this year, she gave me a light kit. It's hard to remember some of the specifics because I'm old, but as a kid, I definitely remember that Thundercracker. That's a good one. As far as 3 characters to join Santa in his sleigh, I'd say that people built for speed. So I'm gonna go with the Flash. I'm gonna go with Quicksilver. And I'll go with I'll add a teleporter just in case they're running behind. They can sort of send a Nightcrawler to drop off some extra presents. Hopefully that makes sense. Thanks for the super chat. That was a beautiful scene. Oh, I'm glad you read it. Like it's so good. It's so good. The Boy Who Loved Wonder Woman. Yeah, referring to the famous Spider-Man issue, The Boy Who Loved Spider-Man. A little bit. But obviously Wonder Woman and Spider-Man are different characters, and this does highlight that. Yeah, subtly expressive is a really great observation. Usually it's only invisible from the outside. How can she see the controls? Well, we're not seeing it really from her perspective. I think that like there was a hint with like the cockpit opening in one scene where you can see some of the interiors. Yeah, trust me, I know. Like Wonder Woman isn't always everybody's favorite. It's so good right now. I think it'll be well remembered. Sure, we'll add North Star as number 4. This has been so fun for me as a reader of G.I. Joe for ages and ages. Issue 302. Now, of that, Diana might know this better than me. I want to say Larry's written now 300 of the 302. I think that there were only 2 fill-in issues in the Marvel era. There might have been more. But Larry obviously has guided the conception of these characters and their trajectory across 3 separate publishers now. For how many decades? 80s, 90s, 5 decades. 5 decades. But one nice thing is that G.I. Joe will refer to continuity, but is not so drenched in it that you can't jump in at any point. This is classic serialized storytelling. There can be arcs, but there's also always subplots and stuff like that. And this one deals with the fallout of the Joes have lost a comrade. I won't name who because I don't want to spoil it, but they've lost a comrade, and it's somebody with some fairly deep ties to G.I. Joe history. So we get a funeral scene and get to feel the weight of that loss. And that's something that G.I. Joe has always, as the comic, The comic has always been way more grounded and, gritty than the cartoon, to be clear. It does still have sci-fi elements, no question, but there's been stakes to it. But we're in a rebuilding period where Cobra Commander is gathering all of his forces in the town of Springfield. Revanche is this AI that wants to also take over the world, so that's a threat. And we've got a third threat. Serpentor set off Dr. Mindbender's zombie bomb and turned an entire island of people into not mindless, but zombies. I was very amused at this one panel here with this casino goer who is got her cart filled with arms and legs. Anyway, no disrespect to any previous G.I. Joe era, but this artist who's working on this, a guy named Chris Moneyham, who I don't know from before, this is some of the best G.I. Joe has looked. I'd put it up there with the eras that had guys like Lee Weeks, Mark Bright, Ron Wagner. There have been some great artists to have worked on G.I. Joe, but Chris Moneyham is definitely up there. I think he's very effective at keeping the characters distinct, setting the scene properly, drawing vehicles well. Folks, it isn't easy to draw vehicles, and G.I. Joe is very vehicular based. It just is. They've got lots of specialized tanks and helicopters and, jets and stuff like that. And I just love that Larry will take time here and there to give us a quieter little subplot of Snake Eyes and Scarlet in their cabin getting a new wolf puppy. So, yeah, Diana is in the chat right now. Diana knows G.I. Joe. I'll just say it. She knows it better than me. I think I know it pretty damn well. Okay. But Diana definitely knows her G.I. Joe history and among many other talents. And she is credited these days in this as the creative consultant. I met Larry Hama in person at this past year's Puyallup SummerCon, a local comic convention. And he was saying that, I don't know if I ever told you this, Diana, like he said, he asked to have you continue on the Skybound, and that he really, and that he really respects you and respects what you do for keeping it all straight. And so that's awesome. Moneyham graduated from the Kubert School. That makes so much sense, Mikey. I mean, just to be clear, the covers these days are by Andy Kubert. And by the way, as long as we're talking about this stuff, Andy Kubert did draw G.I. Joe before. I don't know how many issues, but I know he at least drew, I think, the last issue of G.I. Joe Special Missions. And that's probably going back to something like 88 or 89. But yeah, so that's kind of cool. Really early in his career, Andy Kubert drew some G.I. Joe, and now he's doing the covers, which is also, and it's military themed. What's his father, Joe Kubert, famous for? Sergeant Rock, right? I got to do an episode someday on Joe Kubert and Sergeant Rock. I really want to. I've been wanting to do that for a long time. There's so many things that I want to do. I'm really excited anyway. Let's see. Isn't 80s ROM mostly owned by Marvel? Well, not really, actually. No, ROM would be owned by Hasbro, including the previous stories that Marvel made. But if their stories involved superheroes from the Marvel universe, Hasbro wouldn't have the right to reprint those. So that's why, even though ROM has been at other companies like IDW, they can't always reprint all the Marvel issues because a lot of them will have, Captain Marvel or somebody running around in the background. Mark Bagley drew some G.I. Joe? Did he? That one I don't remember. I'm not surprised, but I don't remember that. Huh. Uh, I know, Beowulf, you're trying to be funny, but yeah, that's uh that's not respectful though. Don't be like that. I know you're trying to be funny. Diana knows her G.I. Joe continuity, and I just want to be clear. I really respect her, and I love G.I. Joe. So people that are giving me good G.I. Joe, I really appreciate them. So, but anyway, uh, look, last book that I'll talk about this week, folks. This might make my top 10 list of the year. Just came out. This is so, like, I'm getting goosebumps right now, by the way, thinking about talking about this book. Animal Pound is an a modern day retelling of Animal Farm. Yes, the classic George Orwell book has now entered the public domain, and Tom King and artist Peter Gross have updated that to tell us a story of this taking place in a modern day Animal Pound. Animal Farm is not a funny or lighthearted book. It is about equality, and it is about the corruption of politics. And what they've done in this is moved it from, like, pigs to cats and dogs, as well as rabbits, who don't contribute, as you can imagine, to the freeing of the animals. There is this is just so, how do I do this without just recapping for you what Animal Farm is? I don't know. What I can tell you is that each of these animals has a distinct personality that's both important to the story and feels authentic to the animal that they are. An older cat who's helping to organize getting everybody free. A bulldog whose only job is to sort of be the lookout, but who panics and like doesn't quite have the wherewithal to put it together. A tough dog named Titan who has to actually bite somebody. It's gorgeous. I'm trying to remember, was Snowball the leader, or was Snowball the one that eventually betrays them? I'm trying to remember. I just realized that it's definitely been a minute since I've read Animal Farm, and I'm forgetting the name of the main characters. Yes, you need the workhorse, the older pig. You do get those characters. Snowball is the rebellious one. Okay, the good guy, right? If that's the case, then it's this cat, like Madame Fifi. But what's important is that, like, in this early issue, it's about establishing what am I trying to show here? Trying to show them working together here. The cat and the dog. Yeah, there. Over there. The cat and the dog working together from the beginning, we can see that the idea is equality for all animals. That, like, yes, dogs and cats they acknowledge they're very different in a lot of ways, but they are all animals that are all chained up. And if they want a society to be free and to work, they have to treat each other as equals. That's the idea that's originally shared by an old dog right before he's put to sleep. He had this new idea, and he shared it with this kitten. And years later, the kitten ended up back at this Animal Pound and has now shared this idea. It's amazingly it's a little depressing, okay, because things do not end well ultimately, but it's an interesting look at both politics and our differences and our shared similarities. It's just it's a good book, folks. It looks great. It's written well. It's a good idea. It's a good idea to find a way to constantly refresh classic good ideas. It's interesting how successful the Larry Hama G.I. Joe and the first IDW Transformers are. Normally, licensed IP books based on toys are questionable at best. It comes and goes. There have been big hits for Marvel with some licensed stuff. Transformers and GI Joe, especially GI Joe, has had a history of doing well. But books we mentioned earlier, ROM, Micronauts, those are based on toys. They had their era. They didn't last as long as Spider-Man, but they had good runs. They had really good runs. So there have been licensed books that have been well done. It all depends, I think, sometimes on the passion of the person working on it. Right now, I will say Transformers by Daniel Warren Johnson. You know what he does well? It's almost like a little bit the opposite of what the Transformers movies did. The Transformers movies tried to make Optimus Prime the biggest badass. He was like the best fighter. He talked tough. He was always running and gunning. This Optimus Prime in the current Transformers is just incredibly compassionate. He wants to protect those that are weaker than him. He wants to. And it's kind of beautiful. It's kind of beautiful. I think that that's very heroic to want to stick up for the other guy. I think that that's heroic. I can understand that. I really can. It's not going to be a pleasant, fun read, but I do think it's an important read. It's an interesting way of looking at politics. I also got this book this week. Haven't had time to read it. Literally just got it on Christmas Eve. And then I was pretty darn busy on Christmas Day and today. I was at work until I was doing the show. I was at work today. But I supported this Kickstarter by Nick Patera for his book. I said Kickstarter. I meant crowdfunded. He did this through Zoop. Axe Wielder John. It's a cool barbarian story that also has a unique framing device where we might have a slightly unreliable narrator, but the art is pretty badass and detailed. People that Nick Patera likes are guys like Frank Quitely and Mobius, guys like that. Really, really good. How does it compare to Stray Dogs? Stray Dogs contrasts the cute with the dark, but ultimately Stray Dogs is a murder mystery and Animal Pound is about politics. So very different, very different. Let's see. What do when an indie comic you want to read is out of physical media and all there is Kindle? I guess I'd get the Kindle. Yeah. That's what I'd do. Yeah. No animal book will beat Stray Dogs. Stray Dogs is great. Stray Dogs is great. I've talked it up as a great book. And this is only one issue. It's pretty darn good. It's pretty darn good. It's not, but I don't think that it has to compete, just to be clear. Even though it's centered on animals, I don't think that that's enough. I mean, by that logic, you'd have to say that Floyd Gottfredson's Mickey Mouse run and Carl Barks' Donald Duck run are animals. These are also talking animals, but it's a very different comic, to be honest. It really is. Yeah, we three, that Beasts of Burden. Yeah, you guys are naming some really good stuff for talking animal books. There's some great ones. Spider-Ham would count. Yeah. Technically, Brute Force would count. I don't think Brute Force is quite going to get up to the same level as the rest of the stuff that we're talking about. But, we're going to have deep sympathies right off the bat when you make your main characters pets. Okay? Cats and dogs, we love them. We love them. So, yeah. Captain Carrot, Ninja Turtles? Yeah, in a way. In a way. Marmaduke doesn't talk, so I'm not going to count that one. Sorry. I don't make the rules. He doesn't talk. I feel like a compassionate Prime is a good take on Prime since it fits in some of his actions in the G1 cartoon as well as his toy quote. Exactly, that toy quote. Freedom is the right of all sentient beings. That, to me, when I was a kid, I got that toy and I was like, oh, Optimus Prime is a very compassionate leader. He wants freedom and equality. The version in the movies, the live action movies, really didn't match at the end of the day. It sounded like Prime. It pretty much looked like Prime. Never really acted like Prime. Mouse Guard? Yep. Mouse Guard would definitely. Oh, that's a man. I haven't thought of Peterson's Mouse Guard in a while. Well, the guys that did like Tony Fleeks and who was the artist? I can't remember her name right now. The ones that did Stray Dogs. Oh, I feel terrible. I can't remember her name right now. Somebody maybe correct me. But they're doing a new animal book called Feral about indoor cats that get lost outdoors, and there's a rabies epidemic going on. So it's sort of like a zombie story. Howard the Duck. Yep. Fables? Fables did have some talking animals, didn't it? Hold on. What's my view on the greatest of all time, Garfield? Yeah. I liked Garfield when I was very little. That was one of my favorite comic strips when I was little. And at a certain point, I really don't know exactly when it was. All of a sudden, I was like, boy, is this repetitive. What exactly am I finding funny here also? Like I hate Mondays. Okay. I don't know. So let's see. I do have an issue with the portrayal, but recently I've gotten attached to the idea of Optimus being traumatized. Oh, you're talking about in the movies? That's an interesting idea. That's an interesting idea. Animal Story? What's Animal Story? I don't think I know Animal Story. The Garfield cartoon was great. The Garfield cartoon was better than the comic strip because it was written by some pretty talented writers. Guys like Mark Evanier. Mark Evanier, guy who writes Gru, or scripts Gru anyway. Oh, man. George Harriman's Crazy Cat is something wonderful. Yeah. Early, funny book. Yeah. Crazy Cat is a pretty influential early comic. It's pretty darn funny and weird and cool. Animal Farm. Well, that's what got us all talking. Is Animal Pound is a modernized retelling of Animal Farm, but instead of being on a farm, it's now in an animal shelter, a kill shelter. Gives them some stakes. Over the Fence. I don't think I saw that one either. I think that was a movie, right? Over the Fence. I think it was. Garfield works as a newspaper strip. It's always funny there. Yeah, I just haven't really laughed at Garfield in a lot of decades at this point, but it is still going. But you guys can definitely rattle off a lot of animal-based stories, that's for sure. What did I not review for comics this week that you read? I'm curious. By the way, I probably will do my show on Monday next week. Technically, that's a holiday, the first, but I don't really have any plans for the first. So, and I've got the day off work, so I'm gonna do my normal Monday live stream next week. The Comic Tropes episode on Garfield, I'll consider it. I probably won't do it, to be honest. I don't think I'd enjoy it. They did a graphic novel adaptation of Watership Down. Oh, I didn't know that. I like Watership Down quite a bit. That's probably like the closest thing that I could compare something like this to, Watership Down. Oh man, Pogo is fantastic. Pogo is fantastic. Walt Kelly, kind of a genius. Didn't always love the way he literally spelled out people's accents. I like that he gave the animals different voices. But like Albert the alligator, like sometimes that accent, like I'd be reading it going like, what's he trying to say? I go, oh, he's spelling out like the accent. I didn't always love that piece of it, but the characterization, the gags, and the art, fantastic. Walt Kelly is something special, people. Walt Kelly is really good if you don't know. Watership Downer. You're not wrong. Bloom County. Yeah, Bloom County. Oh man, Opus the penguin, right? Opus the penguin. Oh, hold on. Yeah, that's a good one. Mouse. I don't think anybody mentioned that. Look, if we're being honest with ourselves, American comic books absolutely started with talking animal, like funny books. If we go back to the early, like sort of more fun comics or whatever, like the earliest comic book anthologies were, those were a lot of them were talking animal things. And then even after Superman came out, some of the most popular comics worldwide were the licensed Disney books, the Mickey Mouse and the Donald Duck stuff. Donald Duck is still very popular in big chunks of Northern Europe, for instance. So talking animals has a deep rooted history in comic books, American comic books. They're intertwined. So we could probably go really deep with listing a lot of these characters, to be honest. We really could. Um, yeah, exactly. Disney comic books were huge in Europe, still are. During World War II, they were still importing Mickey Mouse comics to Italy because the Italians loved that book. That's crazy to me. That's crazy to me. Yeah, Sweden loves Donald Duck, and I don't blame him. So many. Oh, that's a good one. Yep, nobody mentioned Usagi Yojimbo yet. But Kyle Carter says, how did Howard the Duck not get mentioned? Somebody did mention that one early on. There's tons. Look, we could do this honestly forever because, like I say, think about this. The 1930s American comic books were coming out with funny animals. We're almost 100 years into American comic books really being a thing. Hey, bringing it back to something we were talking about earlier, Bucky O'Hare, a Larry Hama comic, and published by Neil Adams Continuity Studios, who we also talked about tonight. I'm pretty sure that Bucky O'Hare made Larry a big chunk of whatever money he has, that because he got a cartoon and video game and some toys out of it. So he owned all of that. Well, with Michael Golden. Yeah. Animal comic version of Paste Pot Pete. Let's see. So, Paste Pot Pet. I was just trying to think of the pun, but you already have it in there. I didn't catch it. Paste Pot Pet. I'm going to wrap this up now, folks. I'm trying to think of what I might be forgetting comic book wise. I don't think anything. I think I'll try to watch Rebel Moon. I don't know. Some people like it. Some people like it. So it can't be all bad. I like Zack Snyder's visuals and the performances. I don't usually like his writing, so I don't know what to expect out of it, to be honest. Hey, Sam and Max is a good one. Sam and Max. Yes, yes, yes. But yeah, I might try to fit that in. And all I can see comic book wise of new material that's out there as adaptations, I'm talking. What If Season 2 has been really fun for me so far. I've been enjoying that. And on Netflix, Yu Yu Hakusho, the live action version, has some really good fight scenes. So I recommend that too. I guess when I see you next, I'll have a comic tropes episode out before the new year. I'm going to do my top 10 of 2023. And I think that will, I think I can get that out before the new year. Otherwise, I'll see you on the live stream technically in 2024 because I'm going to do it on the first. I'll regret watching Rebel Moon. Look, if I don't enjoy it, I'll bail. But I want to give it a shot. I want to give it a shot. I don't know. I'll give it a shot. If I don't like it, I'll bail. If you get a chance, folks, to hit like and subscribe, that helps this. And I did upload a new episode on comic tropes about Aquaman comics, a time when I felt they went too far, but I'm totally open to hearing in the comments if you disagree, if you think that it was a really good story and it was worth doing. I'm curious to hear feedback on that one. Thanks so much, everybody. I've had a really good time talking to all of you tonight. I hope you all had a good holiday. I hope you all have a fantastic new year. I'm excited to talk to you again in just under a week. Take care. Let's make 2024 a really good one for all of us. We'll make it good for ourselves. Take care of each other. Take care of yourself. I'll see you real soon. Keep reading comics.